if you are feeling rage and anger and you're keeping it inside and that is dulling your energetic or spiritual life, honey, go howl at the moon. Go talk to the moon. Go tell your problems to the moon. Welcome to the Glow Up Revolution podcast, a podcast for overgivers, overachievers, and the strong ones in the room. We discuss everything from neuroscience-based burnout prevention to magic spells we can cast for upcoming job opportunities and everything in between. Welcome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Welcome back, Glowies. It is your favorite burnout prevention and glow up podcast, The Glow Up Revolution. I am, as always, your host, Megan Winkler. And today we are going to be talking about energetic and spiritual burnout. So last week, if you haven't listened to that episode yet, we were really talking about the body. Now we are really going to be talking about both energetic and spiritual burnout because they're very connected and they're parts of burnout that aren't normally talked about. So I want to make sure they get their own little episode over here. So you may have done the therapy, you may have done breath work, you may have rested, and you may also feel like something is just missing, something's just gone. And I want you to know that you are not alone. I have been there. I know a lot of other people who are listening this week have been there, and it's just one of the several facets of burnout that we can identify, we can address, and we can repair. Okay, so as we're talking about this, I want you to remember we can repair this. All right, so it's not a big stretch of the imagination to remember that physical burnout exhausts the body, right? And to connect that dot there. When you are energetically or spiritually burnt out, it is affecting your energetic body. It's affecting your spiritual practice, your spiritual state in the world. Okay. And there's no extra thing that you can add to your to-do list. There's no productivity hack you can add to your to-do list that's going to fix that. Okay. And the reason is we live in what you could actually call an extraction economy, right? So we are asked to produce, to optimize, to monetize, to repeat. We are also in a society in which we are just bludgeoned with FOMO, and we're bludgeoned with comparisons. We're bludgeoned with the knowledge that our life is not a beautiful, curated social media feed, right? And unfortunately, at the same time, our spiritual life, under the umbrella of which falls ritual, meaning, mystery, rest, knowledge acquiring for one's own sake, it gets labeled as inefficient or a waste of time, even if it's not said out loud that your spiritual and energetic nurturing is not worth it. Okay? There's still that vibe. And the moment you started treating your intuition like a liability rather than a compass, it became a problem. Okay, let me repeat that. When you started treating it like a liability instead of a compass, this became a problem. And there's all these emotions around burnout, right? If you've read my book, you know there's a shit ton of emotions that go with burnout, and guilt is one of them. Shame is one of them, right? There's this weird shame about not producing something all the time. I had a really great conversation recently with a person who is in college right now. They showed up to a meeting for one of the organizations I volunteer with, and they were talking about how they love to just create, and they have a minor in, I guess it was like metal working. And they didn't have any plans to do anything with it beyond just enjoying it. And I really was like, I think that's amazing, because here is this person in their early 20s who is looking at just creating and being an artist for art's sake. And I was talking with a friend of mine who is also there, who is actually in his 70s. And so we were like kind of like bridging like these three generations. It was really cool. And I said, that's the problem, is that at some point we all just like, Etsy showed up and we said, oh, I could monetize that. And he said, you know what? That is absolutely right. Because I remember when that happened, everybody started looking at ways to make money from their hobbies. And he said, sometimes you just need hobbies. It's like, yeah, sometimes you do. We have this guilt and this shame around that, So when you are energetically depleted, and I am kind of lumping energetic and spiritual burnout into this same episode because they share a lot of the same characteristics. When you're energetically depleted, it's usually because you've been in a space or around people where your energy is just kind of being leached from you. You also could be doing a lot of caregiving. Maybe you've had some really large incidents in your life recently, like the passing of a loved one. That can be some energetic depletion. Your spiritual depletion kind of comes from not being connected to your spiritual practice. And not everybody is going to experience one or the other, or either one of them. Honestly, like you could just maybe never experience either energetic or spiritual burnout. But enough of us will experience at least one that it's definitely worth having a conversation about, right? So when your energetic body is depleted, so this was something that I really learned about in depth in my Reiki master certification. So I learned all about the energetic body and how it interacts with our physical body. Okay. So it's not so much about being tired as it is just being like dull or flat, kind of like a matte finish on us, right? We're not shiny. The lights might be on, but there's like not a charge happening. If you participate in rituals of any kind, even mundane rituals of like making tea for yourself in the afternoon, they used to restore you, and they just don't really do that anymore. If you're feeling a loss of curiosity, of wonder, if you are feeling this lack of ability to be moved, like maybe you're a person who used to cry all the time with movies and you don't really do that anymore. If you're going through the spiritual motions, that's another one. Your energy and your spirit are just not, and you're just kind of like doing things like journaling or pulling cards or meditating to check something off a to-do list, and not because you're getting something out of it, that's a red flag. And then there's also this really subtle experience of doing all the right things and still feeling empty. And I say it's subtle because it creeps up on you. Okay. And before you know it, you realize you're like, I'm just kind of disconnected from all of this. There is a big connection between burnout and feeling a loss of meaning or purpose. And a lot of us hit our 40s and we're like, oh my God, what now? Right? Because over the years, we burned parts of ourselves down for something. So it could have been like a vision, a business mission. It could have been a family. It could have been a social justice movement that we dedicated ourselves to. It could be, building our career. It could look like a lot of things. And it doesn't really matter why you did this, because we all do it to an extent. Okay. That's just how our society is built, unfortunately. And we've talked about in previous episodes the very specific grief that kind of comes along with losing your purpose, losing your feeling of meaning, that sort of thing. And you often experience, when you're experiencing energetic or spiritual burnout, not so much I'm tired, but I don't know who I am now. Or I don't know who I am without my kids. Or I don't know who I am outside my job. So this might feel really familiar for some of you. So stay with me. I've got you. This is a safe space. I want you to know that you are not experiencing any sort of personal failure or any sort of individual experience if you're feeling disillusioned. You're not the only one. I promise you that. This is why we have midlife crises. And I say we as in humans. I was chatting with somebody recently and she was like, yeah, millennials, we just don't have a midlife crisis because like our whole life has just been crisis after crisis. So whatever. We're kind of like getting into weight training and counting protein and gardening and witchcraft and all that. So, but this death of an illusion that was costing you your happiness, your spiritual balance, your energy is necessary. Okay. You have been preached the hustle gospel, my friend. You have been promised that if you work hard enough, if you sacrifice enough, if you believe enough, all of the hard work, all of the burnout, all of the stress would be worth it. And depending on what your definition of success is, it might have been. Maybe you have reached the point where you have a successful life, career, family, relationship, whatever. And you're like, man, I worked hard to get here. And honestly, that's something to be proud of. And also, there's probably parts of you that have been left by the wayside that you might want to go and scoop up and bring home to yourself and reconnect with. Right? There's like little parts of you and maybe their teenage version of you or inner child version of you or whatever they are that might have gotten sacrificed along the way. Right? So the silly things that you used to do as a kid or the silly, quote unquote, silly dreams that you used to have about who you were going to be when you grew up. Right? We might have disconnected from those parts of us. There's also a big effort by society to get us to spiritually bypass what's happening. And it's really easy to slip into a spiritual bypass coping mechanism and use a spiritual practice to avoid the feeling of being disillusioned with where you are now and where you could have been had you made different choices. So energetic burnout feels like your life force is depleted. That metaphorical cup that you've been pouring from is bone dry. You've got nothing left to give. You've got nothing left to create or feel. Spiritual burnout is where you're kind of disconnected from the things that create meaning in your life, in your spiritual life. You are just disconnected from these practices that used to really hold you and nurture you. And they will often arrive together, or they'll arrive with one of the other 4 types of burnout. Okay, because we are whole human beings. So if you're experiencing, for instance, physical burnout, you might also experience energetic burnout. If you're experiencing emotional burnout, you might also experience spiritual burnout. Social burnout might be in there as well. All these things, right? Information burnout might also feed into your energetic burnout. It's totally normal. And I absolutely expect for us to have multiple kinds of burnout happening at once. Okay. But we're going to reclaim it because that is what we do here on the Glow Up Revolution podcast. And we cannot restore what we haven't located. So as you're thinking about this podcast this week, as you're moving through your daily tasks, I want you to consider first what actually matters to you, not what should matter. I'm doing bunny ear quotation marks. Okay. If you start using the word should in your head, I want you to stop and think, is this a belief that is mine, or is this someone else's belief? And then, as you're asking yourself, does this feel like mine? Tap into your intuition. So this is probably going to require you to slow down and to ask very quietly, does this feel like mine? And to stop and listen. You have to listen. Okay. And here's the thing that I wish I had realized when I started on this journey is when you are not used to listening to your intuition, even if it's just been a few months, it's quieter, it's more subtle because it's not going to raise its voice, right? Your intuition never gets screamy, but you kind of have been pushing it off to the side. So it's really interesting that that inner wisdom is quiet and it gets quiet over time. And so when you call it forth, for a lot of people, it will be quieter than you remember. That's okay. Keep listening to it, because the more you listen to your intuition, the more you trust yourself. And it's scary. I'm telling you, it is scary to listen to your intuition and to default to your intuition. When you do, you get stronger. Now, here's the thing is a lot of people are like, well, how can I tell the difference between intuition and anxiety? Your intuition is calm, first of all. Your intuition is also not imagining the worst case scenario. And your intuition, it isn't going to be like, go in and quit your job tomorrow. Instead, if your intuition knows that this job is not the right answer for you, will say something like, I need to start making a plan for finding a new job. Right? Because your intuition comes from a very wise place that understands that you can't just cut off your income stream. You can't just walk away from a relationship for the most part, right? By all means, if you're in an abusive situation, please, seek help and get out as quickly as possible. But if things are just not working out, like, you got to make sure you got a roof over your head and money in your pocket and all these things, right? And your intuition knows that. So your intuition isn't going to spiral out of control. That's anxiety. That's also probably a bit of your head getting in the way. Okay. So listen, it's going to be a still voice. It's going to be a quiet voice. It is going to be a grounded voice. It is going to be a wise voice, and it is not going to be a, oh my God, you have to get out of this situation unless like your life is in crazy danger. Like you're in an Uber and you just get that, oh shit, I gotta go vibe. Okay. So I'm trusting you with making good decisions. Okay. Don't come after me. I love you. I want the best for you. So does your intuition. Don't do anything brash. All right. Take care of yourself. So here's a couple practices that you can start using to restore your energetic and or spiritual aliveness. Okay. So one is kind of look at your energetic output. Do like a little energetic inventory. This is what my energetic containers are all about. Okay. So it's like when you think about your week, it's like what lifts your spirits, what feels draining, what feels and just kind of start journaling about it, start looking at it. Another way is to tap into what moves you. So, what music did you love? What elements of nature? What stories? Maybe it's time to reread a beloved novel that you haven't picked up in a while. Maybe it's time to go back to an art museum because you feel really inspired and a part of the larger collective and universe when you're in an art museum. Maybe it's a ceremony and getting involved with people around you. It's what can you do to tap into the essence of your humanness that is not about an agenda, a to-do list, your work, an obligation. Okay. I also encourage you that if you are feeling rage and anger, and you're keeping it inside, and that is dulling your energetic or spiritual life, honey, go howl at the moon. Go talk to the moon. Go tell your problems to the moon. You don't have to yell. Some of the most intense rage is actually very quiet. Go turn the music up in your car and drive around just for the sake of driving around. Be safe. But sing at the top of your lungs to some angry girl music. Get some like early 90s Alanis Morissette in there. Or just go. Let it out, okay? Because when we exercise that rage, when we exercise that anger, or when we tell it to the moon, or we tell it to the trees, we are interacting with the natural world. We're also releasing it. We're not keeping it inside, and that release will help us heal. Okay. And then lastly, I encourage you to rethink your spiritual practice. And you don't have to burn anything down. You don't have to scrap anything. But if it's been a while since you've tried something new, or you've been getting like this nudge to pull out a different kind of deck. Like right now, I've had a nudge to pull out a different tarot deck, and I've got to do that for myself today. Just do something a little different and see what happens. Okay? Because you're not meant to run on empty, and you're not meant to just like throw everything away. Okay. So finally, I want to ask you one last question that I want you to carry with you through the week. And that question is, what did I used to do that felt sacred before I worried about making it useful or productive? And with that, I will leave you to your week. Before we sign off, I want to invite you to be a Patreon member. Shout out to my paid Patreons. Thank you, Vic, for upgrading to a paid membership. You can be a paid Patreon for just $3 a month. And what that gets you is everybody on my Patreon gets the videos for this podcast, but you also get a weekly single tarot card reading with the energy update for the week. It's very short, and it's really designed to help you kind of start your Sunday off right for the week. So it comes out at like 1 a.m. Central Time Sunday morning. So if you're sitting down with your journal, you're thinking about your week, you can sit down Sunday or even Monday morning with that information and just kind of look ahead to everything. There are higher tiers, and those have extra benefits to them. But thank you so much for being a Patreon supporter. If you are one, you make it possible for me to create this podcast in such a way that it is ad-free. I also want to invite you to the Cosmic Collective, which is my monthly membership. Here in June, we have our very first group call. It will be on Sunday, June 21st, which is also Litha, and to switch over to Cancer season. So we're going to do a Litha ritual together. When you join the collective, it is $37 a month, and you get access to a library of resources that I'm adding to all the time. You get a great community of spiritual and witchy folks who are making their lives better, making the world better at the same time. And it's just a really cool place to hang out and meet some new people and grow outside of social media. It's actually located on Circle. So I'd love to invite you to that as well, if that sounds really cool. I'm super excited about this ritual. It's going to be just like an amazing, amazing time to connect with ourselves and each other for the solstice. So come on over. I have all of those links in the show notes. Again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support. Please share, like, review, comment, and let me know what you think. Send this to somebody that you know is going to love it. And until next time, my friends, stay magical.